In this video we're going to go over cutting out the 6 shapes that you need for your cut paper project. You're going to need a 10-inch by 1-inch rectangle, a 7-inch by 2.5-inch rectangle, a 5-inch by 1.5-inch rectangle, 3-inch triangle, a 1-inch radius circle, and a 2-inch radius circle. We're going to go over a little bit of measuring and how to manipulate each of these shapes into form later on in the video. First we want to start with measuring. For this you just need a ruler, a pen or a pencil, and later on a pair of scissors for cutting. To measure, I've already got some pre-mapped out on this sheet of paper here to speed up your demo video a little bit. On your left we have the 10 by 1 inch rectangle. In order to get those measurements, we're going to look at our ruler, and you're going to notice the end of the ruler, this last little 1/8 of an inch, does not actually measure anything. So start with that first hash mark on your left hand side of the ruler to begin. I usually like to start with the edge of the paper because it's already a straight edge. So if you line up that mark with the edge of the paper, you come in 1 inch and you make a mark. I'm going to make it bold so that you might be able to see it. And you come up higher, you're going to measure 1 inch, make a bold mark, come up higher, measure 1 inch in from the edge and make a bold mark. Now you've got 3 points that you've already measured. You want to do 3 because you can mess up if you do 2, and if you mess up on one of your measurements you're going to end up with an awkward angle. So if you have 3 and you put your ruler down and they all line up in a straight line, that means you've measured correctly. If your marks are off, 2 of them are hitting but the third one isn't, that means you mismeasured, so it's best to start in again. So that's 1 inch from the edge, and then we'll just measure 10 inches up from this side. 10 inches to the top. And again, we still want to do a second mark here. We don't have enough room to do 3, but if you wanted to, you could come further off the page and make just a preliminary mark off out here in space, just so you have your 3 points to make sure that you lined up in a straight line. You draw your line there. Okay? So that's how to measure the rectangles. The one that's going to give more people tricks is probably going to be the triangle. So I'm going to start over here with a scratch piece of paper on top. And we need a 3-inch equilateral triangle, which means each of your 3 sides measures 3 inches. We could do this anywhere on the page. I'm going to do it right here in the middle, just so that you can see it better. But like I said, if you start with a factory edge, it's usually a little bit easier. So I'm going to start at that first hash mark, draw a line over to 3 inches. I'm going to take 3 inches and divide that by 2, that's 1.5. So at 1.5, I'm going to make a little hash mark. So now we have this line here. So we've got the bottom of our triangle. Now we need to measure upwards 3 inches from that center, perpendicular to the top. Okay. Now if you wanted to be exactly specific, you could measure from the bottom of the page, whatever that negative space is, plus 3 inches, and then give you a straight line across this way. That would be fine, but all we need is this point, this point, this point, and this point here. So if I take my ruler, I can match up my center points there, and I can come up here, going to the edge of the line to that center point. There. Now I've got 3 inches, 3 inches, and 3 inches. There's my triangle. For a circle, in your instructions you do not need a compass, and you don't need a compass to draw a circle. What I have here is similar to what I did with the bottom of the rectangle, starting with a line and having 3 points, a center and 2 outer edges. We can then derive a circle. the 1 inch radius circle is actually 2 inches across. So it's 1 inch from the center to the outside edge. A lot of people make that confusion between radius and diameter. In your instructions, it's listed as radius. So from the center to the outer edge is 1 inch. So if I draw a 2 inch line, mark the outer edges, and then mark the middle, which is 1 inch, I have my center point. Make a mark at 2, make a mark at 0, and make a mark at 1. And then I can turn my ruler 90 degrees from that first mark, do the same thing, mark at 2, at 1, and 0, and keep turning until I get to there. Then what I can do, I can easily connect these dots, right? As opposed to trying to draw a circle freehand. It usually comes out like an oval or a little bit off, okay? So this method, it has a lot of marks, so if you can be crude in the markings, you're going to cover up the work later, you can go with this method. The same is true if you're making the 2 inch radius circle. Or I drew these without using a compass at all. Well, without using a store-bought compass. Now, we find ourselves in predicaments in trying to make circles often. We're trying to find cups and containers or bowls that have the diameter that we're looking for, but lots of times we can't find the exact one to trace. So all you really need is a piece of cardboard, a thin piece of cardboard. This is off of a box of chips, and a nail. That's all you really need. So we did say we need a 1 inch radius and a 2 inch radius circle. So I would come in anywhere on this piece of cardboard. It doesn't matter where, as long as I've got room to hold it and turn it. That would be fine. But if you're looking at these points, I have a 0 point, which is my 0 as if it were on the ruler, the 0 point. 1 is 1 inch away from there. 2 is 2 inches away from the 0 point. So if I take my 0 point here, and I want to draw the 1 inch, I'll try and position my hand so that you can see a little bit better. It might be a little awkward for me to hold, but we'll do it. If we start with the 0, and I'll take the pen and put that in the 1 mark that I made. I can turn. When you get to about halfway, you'll have to switch hands. But there, you have a circle. And then do the same thing for 2. From your 0 mark, measure 2 inches out. There's your 2 inch radius circle. Okay? So now that we've got everything measured and marked, then you can cut everything out using your scissors. I'll go over safety with everything as we go out throughout the semester, even if it is redundant. And when you're working with scissors, obviously never cut towards the hand that's holding. Always cut away from it. Just simple things, but they avoid accidents and pain later. Okay, for the manipulation of these shapes which you've already measured and cut out, they don't have to be perfect. This is just an introductory exercise. But in your instructions it says you can bend, you can fold, you can cut, you can twist, but you cannot bisect any of these shapes. So that being, we can then come into this triangle. I can cut out, or cut into, for that matter, my triangle and manipulate it as such that I can then bend and twist and move it in space more than I could if it were just its flat shape. Okay, so now what you're looking at may vaguely resemble a triangle, but that is truly what we started with. The same is true with rectangles. Now, let's see if I can do this. If we cut almost all the way across, go on zigzag across your rectangle without going all the way through to the other side, of course. And I'll stop there. You could then take this small flat shape and then elongate it and stretch it out so that you can do much bigger compositions if that's what you're looking for. Again, bend, fold, twist, crumble, but do not, the one thing you are not allowed to do is to cut something completely off. That's your only restriction for manipulation of these things. So cut, bend, fold, twist, play, try and make these flat shapes, have them try and approach plane or even leave plane behind and get all the way to form to have an object that is fully three-dimensional.